what I liked about that was the band had the kind of grand sweep of an orchestra on it. It was using the mellotron to the full. And I remember one night we were working on the song. It was about midnight, and we'd all had a meal. Normally we didn't do that. We tended to sort of down tools, and once the sun had gone down, that was usually it. But for some reason, we were all up for it, and we were rehearsing in this place in Crowborough, Tony Stratton Smith's cottage there, in a place we nicknamed Toad Hall. And it was midnight, and we were doing what became the end of that song, and I think we were all fairly relaxed after a few, drinks. And right at the end, it just seemed like a perfect moment to do a guitar solo over it. I steamed in with that, and I felt that there were no bands really around that were doing anything quite like that, a sort of fairly classical chord sequence and a rock guitar solo over the front that's maybe got a little bit more to do with the violin in spirit than the guitar. I'd come up with this idea of this guitar technique which was tapping. It was a 71. And it meant that you could play like a keyboard player by using the fretboard like a keyboard would. Tapping's on Hogweed. It's on the front of Hogweed, and tapping's also on the musical box. So it's on both tracks, and also Tony and I used to twin these things together. So the intro of The Return of the Giant Hogweed was the two of us doing those parts in harmonies, triplets in harmonies.
Turn and run, nothing can stop them. All around every river and canal, their power is growing.
Your taste changes over the years with all sorts of things, and but there was a mood which Paul nailed, I think, which, although an external scene because of the croquet game and again the sort of suppressed violence, was, I think, accurate for the vibe that we were trying to portray at the time.
It's certainly weird. It's as crazy as any wallpaper was that was around at the time, but you've got to remember that the 60s had just passed, only just, so I think it very much reflects its time.
I almost prefer this cover coming back to it than I did at the time, in a funny way, looking at it. It's difficult for me to see. It's so much part of my past and youth, and I've signed so many copies of these things that you sort of see them all the time now, so it's rather difficult to have an objective viewpoint, but I think it's a strong image, and with the sort of the lawn stripes and everything. It gives a very strong feeling, and it fits well with the idea of the title and that association with the musical box.
I remember at the time Paul Whitehead coming in with the idea, and obviously he had worked with Peter on a couple of ideas on the phone, I would imagine. It was before the days of email, so if you wanted to see something, you had to actually get together in a room and look at it, and. The thing with the croquet with the heads, that was all it's kind of off the wall. I mean, fortunately, it wasn't as romantic and feminine as Trespass, which was good because it showed that there was a little bit of an unusual side, not just a wistful side to the band. Because I think for Trespass, the music and the cover looked a bit wistful, even though there's a knife on it. But, it doesn't feel quite as butch as Nursery Cryme.
The flame still summer lingers on, though her picture soon shall.
Well, Nursery Cryme obviously was the album that incorporated Phil and Steve into the band, and I think that we became, for that reason, perhaps a better playing unit than we've been in the past, really. And we'd also, by this time, played quite a lot on stage, and so I think the development from Trespass was quite a big one. And we had the ability, the mellotron was a new instrument in that album and everything, and so a sort of certain quality of what people came to think of that early Genesis sound was very much, I think, started with this album, probably more than with the previous one.
I was thrilled with it, you know. I mean, the rough edges at that time, I refused to hear. I just wanted to sort of bask in the glory of the fact that, you know, I'd done an album with what was destined to become a great band, and occasionally the sound was wonderful.
It was a real great 5-piece working unit, you know. I mean, we all got together for the meetings with the cover, you know, we all got together, we were there all the time for the mixing. Pretty much we were all involved in the writing apart from the lyrics, you know. Certain songs would have pairs going off to write lyrics. But no, it's the period especially, I have very fond memories of the period.
A step into the shade, if you like. There's more sort of sun shining in Trespass, more sort of folky fields and outside stuff, and we've gone indoors, a Nursery Cryme.
I think it's a good example of how we were moving on. It's got some nice stuff and some okay stuff, I think, a Nursery Cryme. Thought the cover was good. I like the cover. Actually, quite a strong image of the little girl on the croquet lawn and the head, I think. And we were starting to create an atmosphere about the band. You know what I mean? Quite as perception, quite slightly quirky. People seeing this artwork, hearing the songs, Pete's performance. I felt we're starting to sort of become something that was a little unique in the music business in England, and that was a good thing, I think.